Hello and welcome back to the Audible Finish, our weekly show discussing the week gone by in the world of wrestling. I'm your host, Dimitri Kalos, and alongside me as always is my esteemed co-host, Thanasu. Welcome, Thanasu.
Hey, hey, hey.
In this week's episode, we review AEW's go-home show for Dynamite leading into this weekend's Full Gear show, with all eyes on MJF versus Jay White for the AEW World Championship and the potential reveal of the man behind the devil mask. Later on, we will also look into what happened over on WWE, including Drew McIntyre's alliance with the Judgment Day, suggesting WarGames will become a 5-on-5 affair. Could this mean there isn't a fifth member to be revealed for Team Cody? If you are enjoying the podcast and have a moment, please like, share, and subscribe. On that note, Thanasi, let's move on to AEW's programming to start off with this week. And we're going to be beginning with the latest episode of Collision. So, Thanasi, do you want to take us through Collision?
Let's do Collision. Well, the show opens up with Andrade El Idolo. He's accompanied by CJ Perry as he opens the show against Daniel Garcia in action. And I mean, aside from this interesting pairing that's happening here, I mean, he's been good when he's been paired up with a manager before, Zelina Vega in NXT. As far as the match, I usually really love the double moonsault fake out spot. But the thing is, he does it every time. And especially this particular instance, the one that really I picked up on it, Garcia was so far out that you knew exactly what was about to happen. Like he was halfway across the ring. An ordinary moonsault would never have hit him. So obviously he was going to land on his feet and then hit the standing variation. But in the end, Andrade does get the win via submission to the figure eight. Second match on the card, pretty simple affair. Nick Wayne defeats Dalton Castle. Not too much else to say about that one. We have then Roosh and Dralistico defeating the Workhorsemen, and it appears that LFI have declared their intentions to pursue World Tag Team Gold. So in this match, the Workhorsemen hit a very hard reverse STO Enziguri combo for two. Drake misses the moonsault, but he ends up eating a springboard face breaker instead, and then a running corner drop as LFI emerge victorious in this match. After the match, House of Black choose to stand in LFI's way for the gold by challenging Bill and Ricky Starks at Full Gear. So that'll be an interesting contest to see. And also the aftermath of that will be interesting to see if LFI challenge for the gold. Next match on the card, Roddy Strong takes on Darius Martin. And there's a sick kick and end of heartache, which are delivered to give Roddy the victory. And this, of course, took place during Neck Health Awareness Month. And the Kingdom also hit Darius with an assisted pile driver for good measure after the match. This one is a talking point that I do want to bring up with you, Dimitri. I'm going to ask for your input. This is about the announcement that Tony Khan made. Tony Khan announced the new tournament called the Continental Classic with 12 wrestlers competing in a round robin group format over 6 weeks or 5 weeks, followed by a final series, and then a grand final to take place at World's End. And the first participant is confirmed to be the American Dragon, Brian Danielson, rather. Now, it's G1 Climax style, and I really, really love the group stage format over the knockout traditional format. Wrestling always uses the knockout format, so it's tried and tested. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that, but I'm really keen for group stage format. What was your reaction to this announcement?
Before I get into my thoughts, just something I want to clarify. Is there a stipulation on the line for the victor?
I assume there is going to be some kind of reward at the end, some kind of a number one contendership. I don't know if that was announced though.
Okay, so because that's what I thought as well, is that at the time of announcement there was nothing said. So for me, yes, I'm excited about it, but I do hope that there is that payoff. It's not just a tournament to say you are the collision or the continental collision guy, whatever, classic champion. I'd like it to be you win that, and now you've got a shot at Revolution or something.
Like with Owen Hart Cup.
Yeah, yeah, but it's just the idea of even like it's just the idea of make it mean something beyond just a test of battle, because at the end of the day, your show should be functioning in a way that everything is sort of trying to lead towards the top of the chain, which is the AEW title. So
Yep,
for me,
I'm
it's
on board with that.
just an extension of that. So I like it. I just hope that it does lead into a number one contendership, kind of like what it used to be with King of the Ring. That idea of you win the tournament and you get the shot.
Well, the thing is, Dimitri, that it's only been one or two instances where the King of the Ring actually ended up becoming a number one contender. Traditionally, the King of the Ring was a title, and I mean that literally. It was a title, not a championship, that they would use for that remainder of the year. Like they would be announced as the X year King of the Ring moving forward. There just wasn't a belt associated with it. But I do take your point, and I do think some kind of a number one contendership would be good for this one. But I like the idea of repeat fixtures in this, right? I think that would be really good. So having the round robin format and coming back after a loss could really add to the story as well. Furthermore, Daniel Bryanson is coming back, or Bryan Danielson rather. Messed that up twice. That'll be good to see him back in action. Do you think he's a potential winner as the first announced participant?
I mean, yes, I do, but I think I'd say I'm more confident in saying he'll be there near the top by the end. I think that he'll be the man to beat, so to speak.
I'm on board with that. Let me continue on with the card because there are three more matches for me to cover. The next one is Julia Hart and Willow Nightingale going head to head for the number one contendership for the TBS title. And can I say this? I can't stand Willow's pose and smile pin cover. She's a babyface. It just makes her look far too obnoxious. If she were a heel, yes, fine. But it's irritating to watch for a babyface. Doesn't really match. But on the other hand, her gory special, pulled into a deep headlock, was awesome. The way she just contorted the torque of Julia Hart's body. The match shifted when Julia Hart dodged the cannonball attempt into the steel steps on the outside, and then she ended up hitting Willow with a moonsault for the victory. So at Full Gear, we will be seeing Julia Hart versus the champion Chris Statlander. Penultimate match of the night. Nothing really to say here. Powerhouse Will Hobbs squashes a jobber with Paul White being on commentary. That's basically it. All I've got there. And the main event is six-man tag action or trios action. Darby Allin, Sting, Adam Copeland versus Vincent, Dutch, and Lance Archer. All the heels are Jake the Snake's new clients. And I wish I could say more about this, but frankly, it struck me as more of like a house show or a TV light vibe here, with the way that things were panning out. It just felt more like maybe even like a Rampage, frankly. And it seems like Collision very firmly is in decline following CM Punk's exit, just given the caliber of matches that we're getting, especially in the main event of these shows when it's just like multi-man tag, but even consistently throughout the card. And in any case, the finish occurs when Darby Allin coffin drops Lance Archer on the outside. Then Sting hits the Scorpion Death Drop on Dutch, and then Edge spears Vincent for the babyface victory. I mean, that's basically all my recap. Do you have any further thoughts to add on Collision before we go on to Dynamite?
I just wanted to add quickly, I'm not happy with the booking decision of having this new team of that Jake the Snake's assembled lose in the opening match. It just feels like a bit of a waste of their talents, to be honest. So yeah, so I knew this was going to happen once the match got announced, but it doesn't make it any less disappointing from that end, because you had two teams that really shouldn't be losing right now. So why pair them up against each other? Why not hold off on that?
Yep.
All right, well, on that note, let's move over to Dynamite. So this week's Dynamite opened with Jon Moxley and Wheeler Yuta versus Orange Cassidy and Hook. and Wheeler Yuta actually pinned Hook for the win. So that gives sort of, in a way, Jon Moxley the ascendancy going into his match with Orange Cassidy at Full Gear. Following that, there was a face-off in the ring between Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page, and this was very tense because neither competitor was allowed to physically harm the other without it putting the match in question. So it got very tense. Adam Page got very personal, very heated here. Let's hope that it was agreed upon beforehand and he's not doing another shoot and causing some beef. And then he sort of beat up Prince Nana after that. So those two continuing the little feud there. Following that, we had the other TBS Eliminator match between Sky Blue and Red Velvet, which Sky Blue managed to win, and that's setting up now what is going to be a three-way for the TBS title at Full Gear. Following that, I just quick mention, because I know you love her, Mariah May showed up with Tony Storm backstage. Then I see
Mariah May, double M.
Yes. And following that, the good things keep on coming for Thanasi because it was Samoa Joe versus some guy. And I literally say some guy because I don't even think Justin Roberts gave an announcement for him. Just I might be wrong, but I honestly don't think. Obviously, he won via knockout and continued to echo his sentiment of he's going for the AEW Championship. Then this was followed by Penta, El Zero, Miedo, and Commander versus the Young Bucks. And the Young Bucks got a bit of heelish win here in their hometown, with Nick Jackson low blowing both of his opponents, and he followed it up with a Judas effect, and then BTE trigger with his brother to get the win. So some good heelish antics going on here, and it carried over backstage when he and the Young Bucks and Chris Jericho sort of got into it a little bit ahead of their Full Gear match. Following that, we had the Guns versus some randoms. I think commentary did say the names, but I didn't manage to catch it. But it didn't matter. It was a quick victory in the Guns, also saying basically they're going to beat MJF for the ROH tag titles at Full Gear. And then following that, we had what was probably the only match of the show that was sort of built up considerably, and that was the match between Omega, Jericho, Kota Ibushi, and Paul White versus Hobbs, Takeshita, Fletcher, and Brian Cage. And this was a street fight with a sponsorship for some sort of video game that I'm not entirely familiar with, but I thought, all right, let's see how it goes. And there were some very interesting spots in this. So straight away, Paul White chokeslammed Kyle Fletcher off the stage area near the ramp onto some tables. There was another moment where Powerhouse Will Hobbs scoop slammed Paul White onto the hood of a car backstage behind. So that was really impressive, I must say. And it looked, I don't know if you saw it, Nancy, but it looked vicious and it looked dangerous. And I feared a little bit for Paul White's back, to be perfectly honest.
Well, I think a lot of us are fearing for Paul White's body when it comes to him wrestling now. I mean, yes, he's given us a lot of good moments, but one should be wondering, just you can see from the way that he walks, should he really be in the ring anymore?
And the answer is no. But as long as he is careful, I mean, that he can still get away with it, I feel. And then just sort of conclude a little bit what happened. So Kyle Fletcher tombstoned Kota Ibushi through this sign about the video game that was set up onto some steel chairs on the outside, which looked pretty brutal. Jericho and Omega duct taped Hobbs to the ropes, and then Kenny Omega hit One Winged Angel on Brian Cage for the win. And then the show closed with an MJF Jay White promo battle, and it led to Bullet Club Gold beating up MJF to close the show with Samoa Joe watching on a TV screen backstage. And that was the way we ended Dynamite. So very much so giving Jay White the lead going into their match at Full Gear. Fancy, what did you make of the show overall, but also this segment in closing it, the way it finished?
I think, can I be honest with you? I'm surprised we didn't get an appearance of the Devil in this closing. I thought, because like we've been getting it consistently, over the last little while, I thought it would be good to just kind of like, that's the way that you want to end the show. That's the last thing you want to see. You want to have that mystery. So now it's making me wonder, is this just like a bait and switch and it's just trying to get us to forget about it until the reveal this weekend at Full Gear? Or are we just actually doing what I think is the best thing and lengthening out that whole angle? Because it seems like right now we've got Joe in there. That's the next feud to move on to, assumedly. But I guess because as you know, the last couple of weeks on the show, I did kind of get that feeling that we will be getting the reveal of the devil at Full Gear, at or around Full Gear. And I did just want to throw out another potential name that I thought, and the reason why. As you'll recall, when the devil and his merry men attacked the acclaimed, it was, I think it was either Anthony Bowens or Max Caster that was thrown through glass. So I thought maybe a reference to breaking glass, not CM Punk, but Jungle Boy Jack Perry. And my thoughts on this: A, it would be a big return. It would be a good way to bring him back with hype. However, on the other hand, I'm thinking of the professionalism of it. He was suspended for an incident that had to do with broken glass, and it might not be the best look, I think, from an organizational point of view, to be bringing someone back with such hype, pushed right to the top of the card after a period of suspension for unprofessionalism. But that's just something that I did want to throw out there as one particular point.
I really hope it isn't Jack Perry, because I don't think that will be a satisfying reveal, to be perfectly honest. And from that angle, him coming back, I don't mind it being that he comes back in sort of a bigger position than when he got suspended. I actually don't mind that because he has years in the bank at the company. But I just don't think him as the devil would be that satisfying. I think as well, when this reveal does happen, you want it to be someone that has enough experience as a heel to really sell it. And I think Jack Perry is still very much in the infancy of his character development as a heel, as a villain. So I'd rather him be given more time.
Do you think we're going to get the reveal at Full Gear?
I think it's... I'm not sure about the reveal, but I think he will show up at the pay-per-view. So I think he'll either influence the main event or show up backstage. Maybe the minions will interfere during the ROH tag title match.
Oh,
I think
okay.
I do think there will be some sort of involvement, and I think as well, depending on who it is, if it makes sense to strike now while it's still very much anticipated, go for it. If not, like, I guess the easiest one is, right, just as a hypothetical, say it is Punk. It would be good to do it now because that'll take the wind out of the sails of the Survivor Series rumors. Now, we're not assuming that... Now, we can't know that either of them are actually true. But the point is that if that is the case, then that week leading up to Survivor Series, a lot of people are going to die down their enthusiasm because they're like, okay, now we know for sure what's going on.
I understand your logic. And actually, when it comes to the WWE review, I have the exact same logic to apply to a particular thing that I'm going to say, but you might bring it up later during the Raw review. So perhaps we should move on to the next segment. What do you reckon?
Well, Thanasi, we've been talking about Full Gear so much. I think it's time for us to give our Full Gear predictions. For this show, we're going to do the same thing we did a couple pay-per-views past, which is talk about one of the pre-show matches. We normally wouldn't, but with MJF defending the ROH World Tag Championships on the pre-show, I think it makes sense to make our prediction on that. So him and a potential opponent versus the Guns. A potential teammate versus the Guns. So here we're going to do a bit of a double prediction. We're going to say, do we think he's going to have a tag partner? And secondly, who's going to win the match ultimately? So Thanasi, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I predict that he will that he will have a partner. I do.
Yeah.
But I think that it's going to be someone that he doesn't really get along with, like a Joe or someone like a Roddy Strong. And I think that the consequence of that will be what I think, frankly, is the right booking decision. And that is for the titles to be dropped to the Guns. I think the Guns are in a great position. The faction's in an excellent place. It would actually add momentum going into the match in the main event. Like, is he going to fail twice? So that carries into my prediction there, which is quite firmly that the Guns should be winning, and I hope they are.
Yeah. I think he will have a teammate. I think Joe's gonna pop up and help him out, help a brother out. And to that point, I also think MJF's going to retain the titles in whichever situation. To be honest, I think he either has Joe and they succeed, or he could do it. He could go it alone, and there's some sort of interference. So, but I think whatever's going to happen, I think MJF will retain. So, all right. On that note, let's go on to the main card. And to start off with, we have Hikaru Shida versus Timeless Toni Storm for the AEW Women's World Championship. It's a bit of an interesting one, Tanasi, don't you think?
It is interesting because I feel like we're close and very, very close, but not quite there on Toni Storm. However, even though we're not quite there, she is very, very hot right now, right? Like this is one of the biggest things that we've got in women's wrestling in AEW, if not the biggest storyline. And I'm not sure if we're going to get her hotter than we are now. So I think it might be the time to strike while the iron is hot, even if it's not white hot. And then potentially we're going to have like a fantastic reign where like now she's the focus of the women's division. But I do think that, especially in the spirit of AEW, doesn't really do repeat matches or feuds with multiple matches in them necessarily. So that's why I'm going to go with Toni Storm on this one. What do you reckon?
I agree. I think that's the way it's going to play out. And hopefully we get a satisfying title reign for Toni Storm following that.
Three-time champion. It's going to be three-time world champion is what we're looking at.
Yeah. All right. Well, next up, then we're going to the 6-man tag team match, featuring the first AEW pay-per-view appearance of Adam Copeland alongside Sting and Darby Allin, taking on Christian Cage, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne. I think I'll start off here because
sure,
I don't know about you. I think it's quite self-explanatory. Surely Copeland wins in his first pay-per-view match.
Surely.
Right?
Surely.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it makes sense, doesn't it?
But look, there's an easy way out here where, you know, that Nick Wayne cops the pin or something like that. Like it's very easy. You don't even have to, you can even protect Christian. You can certainly protect Luchasaurus easily.
Yeah.
And I think Nick Wayne is just going to be the one that's going to have to cop the bite in the ass, basically.
Since that's so simple, let's just move on to the next match, and that is Orange Cassidy versus Jon Moxley for the AEW International Championship. So this is one of a few rematches from recent pay-per-views for AEW. Obviously, this one, the AEW International Championship, sort of went through a bit of a sticky situation with injuries, untimely, and such. So we've gone back to the beginning of the kerfuffle, and that was these two. I'm kind of torn on this one, to be honest, because I think one person is stronger in the company's eyes, but another has also recently reclaimed it, and I just wonder if they think it's worth keeping it on Orange Cassidy. So I'm kind of torn on this one, but I'm leaning towards Orange Cassidy, I think, ultimately, just because they want to. I think they might want to make a potential hat trick of these matches. The third coming a bit down the line, not straight away.
No, that's interesting because I'm following your logic 100%. I actually agree with you on every single point you've said, but I'm actually leaning towards Jon Moxley And that's going to be my prediction, purely because I just feel like this is the opportunity for the retcon. Like they wouldn't have had the rematch, I don't think, if they didn't want him to take the strap again. So that's my reasoning there.
Following that, we have the other rematch that I was talking about from recent pay-per-views, and this is Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland. This one is also going to be a Texas death match, so lots of violence expected from this one. How do you see this one faring?
This one, I'm hoping is going to be very brutal.
Mm.
I know that my personal feeling is that I think Swerve Strickland should win.
Okay.
He's been a very, very dastardly heel, especially that home invasion thing. Just makes you want to hate him more. But the thing is, when they pull off a dastardly move like that, that's when you start to really root for the babyface. Nevertheless, in the hope that this actually kind of converts into a big push into the further into the main event scene for Swerve, I actually am going to predict Swerve on this one, even though he did win in the previous match. But I still think going up 2-0 is better for his character rather than any benefit that Hangman could get from taking it 1-1.
So I have the exact same logic. I think that it helps him more, and Page doesn't need it as much. And it really, like, obviously they have really strong heels, but in my opinion, you can never have enough strong heels. So while Swerve's on the rise, keep it going.
Especially when your world champion is a baby face at the moment, right?
Yes.
You need those that revolving door of number one contenders, because you need talent to go up against your main event. If MJF were to become were to turn heel anytime soon, I would invert that logic.
Okay, well, the next match we've got is the Golden Jets, which is Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho versus
Golden Jets.
the Young Bucks. And this one's a stipulation match where if the Young Bucks win, the Golden Jets have to disband as a team. But if the Golden Jets get the victory, then they take the Young Bucks AEW World Tag Team Championship opportunity. So this one is actually really difficult for me to predict because I feel like I can see it working either way, to be perfectly honest. I think this is what happens when you have established guys just going at it. Doesn't seem like either will negatively uh, uh will have a negative result from it.
Yeah.
In this case, I think the Golden Jets are going to win,
Okay.
and then the Young Bucks are going to get really pissed off after, and then complete this like heel sort of transition. I think that's the way they're going with it. I don't know. What do you think?
Look, I mean, I think you recall that I just kind of expressed my feelings of like this is a fresh feud, and I like the fact that it was different. Now, having the Bucks go heel, absolutely, I think is possible, even if they win. So I think on this one, look, the thing is, because there's so many kind of interwoven storylines as far as the tag team gold, because yes, it's around the waist of around one particular team, whatever. But the thing is, like I've already said, LFI, House of Black, declared intentions. You've got Golden Jets, Young Bucks, declared intentions. So I just think changing things up or changing the number one contenders too much might be an issue for Big Bill and for Ricky Starks. So I'm actually going to predict the Young Bucks to win this one, just for that little bit of consistency there, and they can still turn heel even by defeating Kenny with shenanigans or something like that.
And the next match we're talking about is Chris Statlander defending her AEW TBS Championship against Julia Hart and Sky Blue. For me, this is quite an easy prediction. I think champion retains here.
I agree with you, but the thing is, what I want to add in as my prediction here is more that there's going to be some kind of a big payoff here in the storyline, potentially with Sky Blue, I don't know, siding with Julia Hart or something like that. We've seen a slightly darker side to Sky Blue of late. a little bit more of a brooding character. And I just feel like there's something really cooking here, especially given that, they're putting Julia Hart up against Chris Statlander again for the second pay-per-view in a row. I just think like something here is going to cook, potentially post-match though. But yeah, I think the safest bet is to say that Chris Statlander will retain, but hopefully with a big blow-off at the end as far as this angle, and probably Willow to be there to witness it too.
Next, we have the four-way tag team match for the AEW World Tag Team Championship, and this is between the champions, Ricky Starks and Big Bill, versus Rush and Dralistico, FTR, and the House of Black, represented by Malachi Black and Brody King. This is, again, simple for me. I think when there are so many teams, especially with fresh champions, it's champion retains. And in this case, champions retain. Is it the same logic for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Just because I'm expecting, look, yes, they could drop them back to FTR because of the whole injury drop and whatever, but I think I recall that was always going to be the plan anyway. So big 8-man or four-way, four corners tag match. I'm going to go for champions as well.
Okay, well, that takes us into our main event of Full Gear, and that is MJF versus Jay White for the AEW World Championship. This is the match we've been building up to for the better part of, 5 or 6 weeks now?
5, 6, I think it's 6 weeks.
So they've been hyping it up a lot. It disappoints me, but I still think this is also a fairly easy match to predict. Because MJF, I think, just it makes sense. He's got other competitors already lined up for him, which kind of makes it harder. And also the fact that Jay White's been holding the championship for the past 4 weeks or whatever, it kind of feels like they let him have his fun with it just to give it back.
Yeah,
it just doesn't. To me, it doesn't feel like it would make sense for him to actually dethrone him at this point. Is the same logic with you?
It is, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because it's been such a lovely feud. Like I've really, really enjoyed the work that BC Gold have had, even in their interactions with MJF as well. He's been consistently outstanding, being his usual self. So I say it as if in a way that like I'm sad that it's over, right? If that makes sense. But hopefully they can pull it off with just a great match, right? Because we're all invested in the storyline. If you give us an excellent match, an excellent athletic showing, it's going to make it just like the perfect cherry on top. Then he can move on to Samoa Joe for December.
Quick, as the final prediction, does the Devil make an appearance during this match or post this match?
I predict yes.
Do they reveal themselves?
Look, I've been saying it the last 2 weeks, even though I've got reservations. I'm going to go with yes. I think there's going to be some kind of a reveal this weekend.
Okay, well, I kind of agree, to be honest. I think in wrestling, it's hard to keep something ongoing. So teasing the hooded figure, the masked figure, I think you can only hold off on it for so long before people either don't care or it just builds up so bad that whatever the reveal is just not going to live up to it.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to do it now just to sort of get it over and done with, and we'll see how it goes. But all right, well, that takes us through Full Gear. Next week we'll obviously review all this and we'll see how our predictions fare. But we've talked a lot about AEW.
We have.
Is it time to pull it over to the other side?
I think it's time to pull it over to the other side.
Okay, well, all right, let's start. Let's get into WWE discussions now. And to start off with, we're going to look into SmackDown. So, Thanas, you're the SmackDown specialist. You have the con.
Allow me to bring up my notes. Well, the first music that we heard on the show was music to my ears. It was Kevin Owens coming out, and he's going to be on commentary. And he immediately expressed his delight at seeing Rey Mysterio open the show as far as talent for an LWO promo. And the big angle in this one is that Carlito accuses Santos Escobar of costing Rey Mysterio the US title gold. And this segment, I'll get there. I know what you're waiting for. This segment, though, ends unresolved as Carlito goes toe-to-toe with Bobby Lashley. Lashley does end up picking up the victory, with the Street Profits then unleashing on Carlito as Santos Escobar simply watches on. And then Ray comes out with a chair to even things up. And Santos, after being pushed aside by Ray, just snaps. He goes nuts on Carlito, goes nuts on his idol, Rey Mysterio, shattering their bond in just one fell swoop. This is the massive news item for this week. And Santos has finally turned. Dimitri, what do you reckon? Where to from here? What are your reactions?
Well, my first reaction is I got it spot on. Maybe not exactly as how I anticipated, but I did say that the brass knuckles leaving at the ring apron was going to lead into the potential breakup. You were less convinced.
I was.
So if you make 100 different predictions, you're bound to get one of them right. And in this case, mine paid off. So I was very happy just from a personal pride angle of getting that right. I think the breakup itself was handled a bit messily, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is, watching it, it didn't feel like Santos Escobar did that intentionally. And I mean, like, even afterwards with him attacking Ray and Carlito, it didn't seem like it was that was my plan all along. It felt more like I'm pissed off that this person's breaking up the family. Yeah. And to me, it just makes him look equally stupid leaving the brass knuckles there, and then it makes him look equally weak in that he's not given the full on just break up heel turn moment.
If I can get a little bit analytical here, it's actually like a sort of a circumstance where it's posing the question of, is the idea of evil a self-fulfilling prophecy? Like if I tell you 110,000 times that you're evil, are you actually going to believe it and do evil things? Whereas here, it's like Santos Escobar was behind it. It was his fault. Carlito drilled it in a couple times. Does that mean that this is how Santos became evil? Or did he actually intend to do it in the first place? So I agree with you that it did leave a lot of questions hanging. Maybe we'll have those answered next week, however, but we've seen from his work on NXT that he's very good at being a heel, and even was leading a faction. So potentially the rest of the LWO actually comes to his side. But let's see. There is another big news item coming out of this episode of SmackDown, and I'll just continue on to get there. Bayley cuts a promo calling out Io Sky, and Io Sky comes out accompanied by Dakota and Kairi Sane. So in a bit of a swerve, Dakota was in on it too. It wasn't just a kind of Io pulling rank. Dakota Kai was in on this whole bringing in Kairi Sane, and they encourage Bayley to hug it out after Kairi forgives her for the attack last year. And before saying, she says, I don't really do this anymore. Like, I'm not a hugger anymore. But they eventually do all embrace in a big 4-group hug. And they're interrupted by Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, and Asuka to set up a 6-way tag for the main event. And it's that main event that has the big news item that we're going to cover when we get there. Next on the card, Dragon Lee takes on Cedric Alexander. I loved the reversal of the clothesline into a moonsault that was hit by Alexander. So it was like the reversal was a reverse STO, or like a standing Spanish fly by Alexander. So that was really awesome to see that reverse STO moonsault. And he also followed it up with a Michinoku driver. And he really, really got a chance to kind of show his stuff here, even though he eventually succumbed to that Hurricane Rhino into a reverse DDT by Dragon Lee, who got the W. We did see exactly what Cedric Alexander is capable of. Next on the card, LA Knight is out spitting some facts that Jimmy Uso is the only reason he lost the match for the world title. And frankly, he's kind of right. And he also implies that his opponent of the evening, Grayson Waller, is a nonce, basically.
Yep.
And then he calls him an incel as well. So I don't know how PG this stuff is, but he must have some freedom on the microphone to be able to say that kind of stuff. During the match, LA Knight counters the rolling stunner into a back suplex, and after eating an elbow drop from distance by Waller, Knight hits the People's Elbow and the blunt force trauma for the quite expected victory. Dimitri, did you have a comment on this before I go on to just this next little point that I want to make?
Yeah, I'm happy that he didn't take the loss and do
Mm.
the normal babyface thing of that was annoying, but I'll pick myself up and we'll get back at it. It was more like a no, I'm not done with you. Screw that. You
Oh
guys.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think it was very fitting in with his character. So I thought, well, like, good on them for doing
yeah.
that.
Definitely
I
agreed.
still think I don't want him to have a rematch. I'd rather it be that he's like he demands it, but ultimately the bloodline intervene and sort of get in his way so that it sort of stops him from even getting to the top again.
Yeah. Well, as this match finished, there were replays being shown, and Kevin Owens, of course, who was on commentary,
Oh,
he used like a digital pen, like a digital stylus, which I think
do
they
you know what they
call
called them?
telestrator.
Telestrator. That's it.
Illustrator, just to kind of illustrate which, like, I'm really in favor of this because it feels like a lot more sporting when they
Yeah,
use it. But that being said, I mean, it was used purely for the purpose of ridicule. But the thing is, like, because you and I, we see it being used in like cricket and stuff like that
that was exactly
in
my
sporting
thought.
analysis.
Yeah.
So I thought, it was really cool to see this. I would like to see that used more. But in any case, as retribution for drawing embarrassing things with the telestrator, Waller and Theory pour water on Kevin Owens,
Ooh.
and he retaliates. And why is that a big deal? Because he retaliated with the knowledge that he's going to be suspended for violating his commentary duties. He was put on commentary with the condition that he must not become physically engaged in anything.
No.
And this was what kind of set that off. So this is going to be settled next week. I don't know exactly where this is heading because there's two of them and there's one of Kevin Owens. So I don't know if it's going to even up at some point, but it's just they're both good opponents, but I know that Kevin Owens is bigger than both of these guys, to be honest. In the main event, it's Damage Control, which is represented by Kairi Sane, Bailey, and Io Sky. Of course, Dakota is injured, taking on Bianca Belair, Asuka, and Charlotte. The swerve of the night. Asuka teases a tag in with Bianca, but she moves her hand at the last minute and then missed Bianca right in the face instead. Asuka then jumps into a big group hug with Damage Control, a five-way group hug this time. And the match ends up finishing with a no contest. It's a scuffle. Shotzi gets involved as well. And this is just, this is even bigger news of the segment because Damage Control has expanded 2 times in one night. And my maths says Damage Control now has 5 members, including an injury, but still 5 members. And then there were 3 baby faces in that segment at the end because it was Charlotte, Shotzi, and Bianca. So I'm going to put it out there. I'm guessing WarGames, potentially with Jade Cargill jumping in. What do you think? Too wishful?
I'm less certain on the Jade Cargill thing, but I definitely think this is War Games.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think, I would say I think they will do 4-on-4, just because
Okay.
I'm not certain that Dakota Kai is ready yet,
Yep.
ring ready.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I'm very excited. Obviously, they'll have to find another baby face to sort of even it up. Maybe it is Jade Cargill. Uh, I would opt for someone else, but it's good that you mentioned that because it was one concern I have now is that it feels like SmackDown's options for Io Sky are a bit thin right now.
You mean as far as the number one contender?
Yeah,
Yep.
because the things we've already had Charlotte Flair and Bianca Belair a couple of times now, so it does feel like where are these next competitors going to be coming from?
Look, if you ask me, the next feud, because this is good that they've got Io in a Survivor Series feud, but the one after that really should be against Bailey. Like I think it's ready to it's hot enough now with now the addition of 2 new members that we can have the big Io and Bailey blow off. Whether it preferably for the title, to be honest. I don't care who wins really. That's going to be a time will tell. But I think that post Survivor Series that would be a good feud to go with.
Okay, well, we'll see how that plays out. In the meantime, let's now move on over to the red side of things in WWE.
Let's
So we're
do
going to
it.
be talking about Monday Night Raw. So Raw this week started with a showdown between the two WarGames teams. And during that segment, Damian Priest proclaimed himself the leader of Judgment Day, which sort of got a lot of oohs and ahs from the crowds and the officials and commentators alike. But this led into Seth Rollins and Sami Zayn versus JD McDonough and Dominic Mysterio in the opening contest of the night, which unfortunately had a DQ finish, and it led into another brawl. And so Adam Pearce intervened and banned everyone who was not involved in the tag title for that night from the arena. So that was very interesting there. And then Rhea Ripley sort of was there complaining to Adam Pearce about that decision, and this led organically into a confrontation in ring between her and Zoe Stark. So a lot of the opening parts of Raw felt very interconnected, just wrapping up a lot of Judgment Day business right then and there. Following that, we had a Shinsuke Nakamura pre-recorded video. We're still unsure as to whom he's referring to as his next opponent, but this led into Otis versus Shinsuke Nakamura, with Shinsuke having to hit 3 Kinshasas to actually keep Otis down to get the win. So I thought impressive for the graduate, let's say, of Chad Gable's academy. And this is also leading to a match next week between Shinsuke and Chad Gable. So obviously a little mini feud going on there. Following that, Tegan Nox got a win over Piper Niven. And I think this is setting up a tag match between her and Natalia and Piper Niven and Chelsea Green later on. That's just my little prediction as to what's going on there. And then we had Tommaso Ciampa versus Ludwig Kaiser, with Kaiser actually getting the win after Vinci, and firstly, I want to discuss this a little bit. He was sent to the back by the ref, then came out, attacked Johnny Gargano. The ref saw it, said, "What the hell?" And then that gave the distraction for Kaiser to just roll up Ciampa for the win. But I thought to myself, what's the point of the ref banning someone to the backstage area if they just come back and it doesn't mean anything? Like, I always assumed if they did come back again and were caught, that it leads to a DQ.
Well, that's the exact thing, right? I've always wondered this exact same thing, because it just seems like when they get ejected to the back, that there's some kind of magical force pushing the banned wrestler away. So I genuinely wonder the exact same thing. And you know what? Can I just say, it'd be nice if commentary could actually offer us some kind of an explanation here.
Yeah.
Same way that in the same way that like a sports commentator would, just to be like reminding us of the rules here, of exactly what's going to happen, as consequences. But yeah, no, I completely agree with you there.
I think it's I'm glad you brought that up. I think it's a thing where it's kind of like similar to movies where the rules sort of just follow whatever the plot demands of it. So in this
Yeah.
case, it demanded apparently Kaiser getting that sort of distraction helping win. So they just went through that route. But I didn't agree with it all that much, to be honest. Following that, the Judgment Day sort of agreed backstage, and they made JD McDonough a fully fledged member of the group leading into WarGames. And I saw a little like screenshot during the week where it said, "This is giving me Sami Zayn vibes from last year when the Bloodline finally gave him the shirt." And I thought, yeah,
Fair
kind
enough.
of,
Fair enough.
kind of. And this was followed by Xia Li versus Indy Hartwell. And Xia Li again got a win via referee stoppage, this time with a sort of spinning kick, which is not the same type of kick, the commentators pointed out, as the one that had knocked out her previous opponents, meaning that essentially any kick of Xia Li, watch out. Which, to be honest, I don't mind, because they are making her seem vicious with that right leg right about now. I don't mind that. But post-match, Becky Lynch came out and announced the two will face each other next week on Raw. So we'll see where that goes. I think Xia Li should actually get the win here.
It'd be a massive win for her, even though it's on TV.
Yeah. I think that, and they should do it the exact same way. Like have Becky last a little bit longer, but then just out of nowhere, just the kick comes in, and then have the sort of recovery angle come back. So she wants to come back and fight again and get that win back.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that being good for like a little mini feud for Becky. Yeah, I can on board with that.
Following that, we had The Miz versus Ivar. And I just wanted to point out that, again, another impressive performance from the War Raider. Oh, sorry, the Viking Raider.
Former member of War Machine.
Yes. Oh, God, how many names have they had? At one point, they were the Viking Experience. Do you remember that?
I know. I remember that. That was god awful.
But just let's get to the finish of the match. So Bronson Reed came out and in the finish, he distracted Ivar as he went up for his moonsault. And The Miz capitalized on this and powerbombed him while he's up on the top rope and got a dirty pin win after that as well, where he put both his feet on the ropes for leverage. And then Reed afterwards hit Ivar with his Tsunami Splash. So we're getting another bout of just big men just going at it. So we know a certain man that is very excited by that proposition.
Vince McMahon loves big sweaty men.
He certainly does. And then this led into the main event of the night, which was Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso versus Damian Priest and Finn Balor for the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships. There was a couple of near falls in this match. Notably, there was a spear and then Cody 1D on Finn Balor, which Damian Priest managed to break up. Priest then threw Cody into the ring post at one point so hard that it actually broke apart a little bit, which I thought it was a good save by the commentators for what essentially looked like shoddy workmanship. I don't know if that was intended or not, but it gives off that vibe.
Yeah.
And then there was a moment where it looked like Jey was making up for it. Cody was sort of indisposed. And then out of nowhere, Drew McIntyre showed up at ringside and he claymores Jey Uso, throws him into the ring for Balor to pin and retain the titles. And the show closes with Drew shaking Marmy's hand, Rhea Ripley. So we have what seems to be a fifth member for Team Judgment Day. Honestly,
does this mean it's cooking? We said it last week that there is room for a fifth man on each side, right? The speculation just keeps building up here. I have a realistic prediction and I have an unrealistic prediction. Which one should I say first?
I tell you what, say the unrealistic first.
Actually, CM Punk.
Yeah?
CM Punk. It's in Chicago. It's got to happen. However, I think I brought up earlier about the whole CM Punk and quelling the rumors, which would have happened, to cut off that the wind at Full Gear.
Mm-hmm.
I think if it's not CM Punk, which I'm being realistic, I don't think it is CM Punk. It needs to be announced before the night, because otherwise the fans are 100% going to hijack the show, right? Like you can't build it up and then pull the rug from under the feet of the Chicago crowd, because they will go absolutely bananas on you. So my realistic prediction, it is the return of Randall Keith Orton. The Viper will be back.
Randall Keith.
No.
Yeah, I think it is Randy. I'm very excited about it, and I agree with you. And I actually think the next week they're going to announce it for that exact
next
reason.
Week? Okay. I actually think it would be on the Go Home show. Is next week the Go Home show?
Next week is the Go Home show, isn't it?
Then yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, I think they will announce it for that exact reason of Chicago doesn't like being teased and then not being paid off. They really don't.
There are a lot of crowds that don't like that.
No, but especially Chicago, like, because the tease there is synonymous with CM Punk. That's why I say it.
Yeah.
Every time. So I think definitely it would be worth their while to just have him make the appearance on Raw as well. Because I also think, in a weird way, that might be even more surprising if he does show up on Raw. Just for the sheer fact that if they wait till the pay-per-view, we're kind of waiting for that someone to turn up. Whereas on Raw, we don't necessarily know, or we're not necessarily expecting it to be then and there. So that's like an in-company way of justifying themselves without it just being what you said, which is the truth, that they just don't want the crowd to hijack the show with a dream speculation that isn't what they're going for.
And if I can just add this point, just before we close off, I think after the show, Cody cut a promo and he said, this is like obviously like dark main event, referring to the Judgment Day. You guys have got friends. We've got friends too. And obviously he and Randy have a history.
You know what that means though? It means that we're going to see the appearance of one Ted DiBiase Jr. come back.
Come on, man. He's in prison. Let's not go quite that far.
Nah. Maybe they give him like a day pass or something. Nah. All right. Well, we'll see how it pays off next week. I'm actually very excited for WarGames with all this going on. So, and with Full Gear as well. Like it feels like there are some very interesting things paying off at the same time right about now. So we'll see how that fares next week. This brings us to the end of this week's show of the Audible Finish. So next week we will be reviewing AEW Full Gear, as well as looking at the go home stuff leading into Survivor Series WarGames.
Indeed.
And that's it. Great to have your company as always.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks to everyone for tuning in. Until next time, we hope everything you do is just too sweet.